coach at the University of Houston. There he is with all those helmets in the background. David Smoak and Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. How you doing, Coach? Are you in a decompression mode with spring workouts? The portal, at least we think, has closed. What's it like this week?
Well, it's, kind of reviewing everything, reviewing spring football, reviewing, the portal. We're full and, feel good about our roster right now. And then a bunch of our guys are out spring recruiting. This is the time where college coaches can go to high school campuses. Unfortunately, you don't allow the head coaches to go out. But I get reports on those guys. I watch film. They try to video a little bit while they're there watching kid maybe work out or whatever the case may be. So there's plenty to do.
Coach, for the portal this year, it was much more coming in than coming out for you, but you did get a couple guys that jumped in here in the spring portal. Were you ready roster wise to take that on, or did that catch you by surprise at all?
No, you got to make decisions based on what's best for your program, and you got to make sure you have guys that fit your culture and are going to help your culture and make sure of that. And so we had to make some decisions on that as well, just to, be sure that we're, going in the right direction. And, so each individual's, we treat as an individual and try to do what's best for our team and for the individual as well. But we feel good about it. We feel like we got some good kids and we're excited about it.
What stood out to you most about year number one down in Houston?
One thing that, in the Big 12, everybody's pretty good. I've played in some other leagues where, maybe there was a couple games that I don't want to say roll the ball out, but you could, if you played halfway decent, you were going to probably get a win. Everybody's well coached. Everybody's got good talent. There's a lot of parity. I was impressed with the league in my first season of competition. So just a very, very competitive league from top to bottom.
Did you learn anything other than that about the conference you didn't already know?
No, not really. I'm from Kansas City originally. So
right.
Big 8 guy for years and years and years. And then obviously the Big 12. So I had some familiarity with it. But, I know a few of the coaches, some of the coaches I'd competed against, at other spots that I'd been at. But I just think from top to bottom, very well coached and a lot of really good players and a distinct difference from a group of 5 football that I was involved with without question.
Willie Fritz, head coach at Houston, with us on 365 Sports.
Coach, there's a lot of new faces in year 2, like year 1, because of the way it is. Is it easier to meld those guys in after year 1? Because you like you said, it's culture guys, so you have some people in there in the program that understand after a year that the culture is set.
Yeah, I think it is. Majority of the coaches are back, and that really helps you. The support staff, majority of them are back as well, and I think they understand. I was kind of looking at our staff because we had a kid in yesterday, and his mom made the comment, gosh, it seemed like most of these coaches either played for you or coached for you or both. So I got a lot of them that have done both for me, and that I think that continuity, helps you, particularly in year 2, because now we were all at a new place, but they understand, these are going to be the solutions to problems maybe we had in year 1. And then also you got to find out where you were strong at. Obviously in year 1 in the Big 12, we were not very good on offense, and we weren't very good on the offensive line in particular. And that was an area that we had to address. And we addressed that in December and picked up 5 guys who'd started Division I football and done a good job at the different places they were at. We want to get to a point with high school recruiting where we're going to be able to supplement our roster with people from the portal. But unfortunately, where we're at right now, we had to really jump into it hard and heavies. But that was an example of one position that needed to be addressed quickly.
I know the ending isn't what people wanted, but how much juice, electricity, and how much fun was that seeing what Kelvin Sampson and men's basketball was able to do this past season?
It was awesome. I just got done talking to our track coach about it. I I drove over to the championship game, and I'm a big Buc-ee's fan. I ought to get some money from those guys, right? Fletcher, some NIL or something. But anyway, I stopped in Waller and got something to eat in Waller, and the whole place was red. And then when I drove down, and I had to stop again in Luling, and same thing. Everybody in the place was red, and they did, what they did for the university. You just can't measure. It's unbelievable publicity. I got a chance. I'm a big basketball fan. I played basketball in college. I got a brother who's a highly successful high school basketball coach. And I love going to games. I go to practices on occasion and watch Coach Sampson, and just got a lot of respect for what he did with the program and everything he did for the University of Houston.
How can other sports success, or is the success of what they did, can it be contagious across all sports?
Well, I've told our kids that, I've used two examples. One is, Arizona State kind of had the template for the University of Houston. They were 3-9 2 years ago, and they were Big 12 champs this last year. And, I happened to be at that game. They played in the Peach Bowl, and woulda, shoulda, coulda, but there's a couple of calls in there I wasn't quite sure about. But they really represented the conference in a first-class manner. So that's one area that we've talked about. And then also basketball. You do it in football, it's 10 times that, when you have, great success in football. And, so yeah, I talk about our men's basketball team all the time and what they've done for the university, and, how that's possible for U of H to do that with the football program.
Well, Coach, you've got a new quarterback. You went and you got a really good tight end in the portal. Like, do you get excited to, especially some of the guys that haven't been there in practice? Like, do you start getting excited now about I can't wait till fall, and to see these guys all together?
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Putting together a team. We went through spring ball. I had two new coordinators, and the NCAA is allowing you to do more than you used to be able to. There's some times where you can have a football for, a couple hours a week that you can do some things. So, one of the things I think people got to be careful of is doing too much, and we're very careful about that. We want the season to be the primary focus. But yeah, I liked how we installed our offense and defense and kicking game throughout the spring. I like the addition of the kids that we had that worked with us in spring football. And then I like the addition that we had, with some guys that we've signed here in the last few weeks. I think these guys are, got great ability and have competed at a high level, and they were position needs for us. And, that's what we went out and addressed. And yeah, it's exciting to have them all come back on May the 27th and get after it this summer.
What is more of an impact, Slade Nagel coming in as a coordinator, or Connor Wigman being a guy that has experience at quarterback?
Boy, one of them's going to get pissed at me, aren't they?
Yeah, which child do you like better, right?
That's right.
Well, from a football coach's perspective, obviously you hope both of them have a great impact on you.
Yeah, Slade was with me at Tulane and did a fantastic job there. And he went over to LSU. He'd been there before, and I was fortunate enough to get him back over here because, he didn't call plays there last year, and he really enjoyed. He didn't know how much he was going to miss it, I think, was part of it. So really excited about, understanding him, and he understands me, and how, I liked how he called games, for us at Tulane. And then Connor, I'm just so excited to have him as well. He just, Sean Bell, how long? All right, 11 minutes. Sean, really recruited, Connor out of high school. I think he was the first D1 school to offer Connor coming out of high school. So they had a great relationship. I think he wanted to come back to Houston. Connor's dad actually played for us at Sam Houston when I was a coordinator there in 1991. So I had some familiarity with his dad. And I just think they wanted to come back to Houston. And he's been just awesome. Just, great teammate, great leader. And I think he's excited for a fresh start as well.
You've coached a lot of spring ball. It sounds like from coaches we talked to, you're still getting the work that you want to get in, but what are your thoughts on just how it falls now and the calendar and the changing of spring games and all that comes with that? Do you have any sort of stance on the state of spring ball, I guess, so to speak, compared to the more traditional era, I guess?
I think the first thing that's going to have to be decided is the spring portal windows. Are they going to have two of them still, or are they going to have one? And when is that one portal going to be? I know the coaches voted for one portal window, but I think we're about 0 for 78 on different ideas that we've suggested over the last few years. So we're going to have to see what happens there. And I was on the rules committee for a while. I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years ago, and I guess more than that when I was at Georgia Southern. It was one of the things that I suggested along with a couple other coaches. Coach Calhoun from Air Force is trying to have some spring games against a different opponent, and we didn't do a very good job because they told us no, and now I know some people are kicking that idea around as well. I think if there's going to be a second portal window, we probably need to go to the OTA model of the NFL in the summer, and that's going to be more of your traditional spring ball, so to speak. So we'll see. I talked to Craig Bowl, who's right there where you guys are located in Waco, and he's been a good friend for many years. I know they're trying hard to, get a little handle on all this, so we're not changing the rules yearly. Then everybody can make plans, and I hope that's what happens.
Willie, is the SEC has a rule about the transfer portal that in the spring, and if it goes to the one in January, I don't know if it changes, but you can't transfer within the conference. Has the Big 12 ever discussed that?
I haven't been in the conference very long, so I don't know. I think it's a great rule. I think all it does is create problems between institutions, coaches, student athletes, whatever the case may be. So I do think it's a great rule, but I'm not the one who's going to decide that.
With what's happening with the settlement and his constantly being pushed back, and somebody makes a decision here pretty soon. How has that affected?
When's that going to be?
Well, boy, I tell you what, you could write a book and make millions on that. And I know you have other things you got to get to, but a couple more questions. Have you had conversations with players about not any room left? And let's say if you have, if the settlement goes through and they are more flexible with the roster limits, do you bring them back? How does that work?
Well, I think that was a tough part of it. They didn't really put a whole lot of forethought into it. But, you got kids who've been on your team, and all of a sudden you're going down to 105, and you already had promised some high school kids to join your team. And all of a sudden you're, the number that we've all been at for a long time. Most everybody in the Big 12, I assume, is between 115 and 125, so somewhere in that area. So, I thought it was good by the judge to say, hey, I want you to put some more thought into this, and I'd like to see you grandfather the kids in. And, so we've told the kids, we had a bunch of the kids get in the portal just so they could cover their rear and have a place to go in case it stays at 105 and we're not going to have a spot for them. But there just seems to be a lot of decisions that are being made that are happening on the spur of the moment rather than, thinking about it and giving us some time to implement, the different plans that they want us to follow.
I couldn't agree with you more. Paul?
Coach, some of these, especially like when you get, some of the stuff that's happened where in this spring portal that's only 10 days long, right? It's like one of those hostage movies where all of a sudden he's like, I need $500,000 in 3 days, or it's going to be bad. Does it feel like that sometimes? Or do you have to be like, look, if that's going to happen, then just go? I mean, that's probably the easier way to deal with it, but there's so much pressure from the outside on you guys. I would imagine there's sometimes those reactions of like, all right, well, now I have to raise all this, almost maybe $1 million in less than a week.
Well, that's something that we're working through here at the University of Houston. There's some schools that have got a lot of money and they're doing what they call front loading with a lot of guys so they can, make their cap number a lot higher than what's going to occur in July. But yeah, we had some conversations. There were some student athletes that we were not going to be able to increase them or not to the level that they wanted to. And it's, one of the good things is I've got some former players and different people who are in NFL front offices, and we're trying to learn from them. And I just hope we have some continuity with the rules so that everybody can have a good plan of attack and it doesn't change on the fly like it seems like it's done over the last couple of years with decisions that have come down to us.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it. I know you juggle the roster, whatever. Last thing, tell Rashawn Sanford we said hi. We watched him at Harker Heights. I know he had the knee injury, was able to play a little bit last year. I know you have Snead and a pretty big group of people in the running back room, but how electric can he be for you?
He had a really good spring. He really did. And we're blessed to have a good group of running backs. And, they're going to compete. They're all going to play early. It's, there's some positions, you can, practice and scrimmage and do all those kind of things, but you really determine the pecking order and how much guys are going to play based on your first few games of the season. And that's going to be the case with us at running back position. We've got some good backs and Rashawn had a fantastic spring, and Stacy Snead, as you mentioned, along with some of the other backs, and they're going to compete to, they all want to be the bell cow, right? You only got one football, so we'll find out those first few weeks who that dude's going to be.
Thank you very much, Willie. We appreciate your time, and good luck managing whatever you manage, because you don't know half the time what's going to happen and change the next day. Appreciate you very much.
Well, one thing, you got to adapt. You got to understand that. I'm blessed. I got the best job in the goddamn world. I don't sound like a whiner. Hopefully I didn't today, but
no.
Go Cougs. Thank y'all.
No, that's Willie Fritz, head football coach at Houston, with us on 365 Sports. To a man, to all the coaches